I'm Eric Graby, and this is the Graby Experience. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make these amazingly comfortable Adirondack chairs for under $100. Let's get into it. All right, so we're going to need a couple of things to make our pieces for this Adirondack chair. So Kings Fine Woodworking, their website, you can purchase the plans for this, but when you purchase the plans, you also want to have to purchase these templates. So they come in a little envelope, they're all kind of folded up like this, but they're labeled. You see back, I don't know if you can read that, but it says back leg. 2 of these, there's a little hole for the wheel that you can put on there, but they come like this. I went ahead, since I'm making multiple chairs like this and it's windy like this, so I can't hold these down to trace them because it's so windy today. Went ahead and cut these out. So I just got my bandsaw, traced this out on some old shelving that I had in the garage, and I traced it out and just cut these out so that I can just place them on here and trace them, and I'll kind of show you what that means, what I mean by that here in just a second. Let me pick up all these pieces. These are kind of the best boards I could find at the local lumber yard. They're not great, but this is just basic construction pine lumber. I am going to paint these. So I do like to use a thicker marker to do this. I'm going to be cutting this on a bandsaw, so I like to make a thick marker line. And as you can see, I already have one here drawn out, so I'm kind of basically just looking off of that, seeing placement on this, because this worked out well for me, so they fit just perfect. So I'm basically just making sure these are the exact same lineup here that I've got for the other board. So basically you just make your mark all the way around like this. Super simple. These templates are great. They're not that expensive. I think he has a sale right now going on where you can pretty much buy all his projects with one purchase, and he's got them all on sale. At least that was, yeah, at the time of filming this video, was what Kings Fine Woodworking had on his website. We'll get that lined up there, and then just basically do this for all pieces, and you're good to go. If you are going to make these templates, I do suggest that you take your time with the tracing and the cutting of the template for sure, and sand it down real nice so it's easy to trace around. You don't have rough edges, especially if you plan on using them over and over again. I don't know if I'll sell some of these or not, but if I ever do, I have the templates to cut these out. This thing will last forever. So that's basically for the 2 back legs. So we have the 2 back legs right here, and basically what we do from here is we just take it to the bandsaw and cut these pieces out and move on to the next pieces. I'm just going to trace out the rest of these and I'll come back to you. I would recommend, even if you don't want to cut out templates, if you're making one chair, you don't really need to cut out templates. Wood templates, that is. You can use the paper ones just fine. I've made one of these before with just the paper templates. I will say that you have to make 14 of these, so you need 13. We're going to cut 14 just in case there's a knot in the way, kind of like on these boards here that just isn't aesthetically pleasing. You can have an extra to choose from, but cutting these curvy thin lines on a piece of paper, that paper ends up getting fairly annoying to deal with after about the 3rd or 4th one. So highly recommend at least cutting out a wooden template for the back supports here, so that you have something a little easier to work with, that's solid and isn't going to blow away in the wind, especially for me if you're working outside. That can get annoying, so something to think about. So we've traced one, we'll trace the rest of them. One board on this, the 2x12 8-foot long board, you're going to be able to get 12 back slats cut out of this. We'll go ahead and trace the rest of these and I'll be right back. So if you look at this, one of the reasons why we would cut out 14 is, like I said, if there's a bad piece of wood here, we need 13 back slats for the chair, but the cut plan calls for 14, and this is why. This is actually, this piece right here, as it curves down through here, is actually going to be the backrest so your lower lumbar will be sitting up against this. Now when I cut this out, that's probably going to snag on a shirt or something like that, so this piece is probably trash. So this piece might even be suspect here. Now you come up here, this is where the headrest is, but your head's going to be on this side of the back slat. So with this not being on the back side here, I don't think that's going to be an issue as much as this lower knot is right here. I just think this will probably get caught on a shirt or something. I may be able to put this off to the side if I can't find a better piece than that, but I think that extra one will come into play for this specific chair. All right, we've got everything traced out. Here is the wood that you guys are going to need for this project. You've got two 2x12s. You need a 2x6 and a 2x4. These are all 8 feet long. Pretty simple as far as what you need for wood. Like I said, this is basic, just pine construction wood. So nothing special. You can make it out of cedar. You can make it as expensive as you want. I think this was like 50 bucks for this wood at my local lumber yard. As you can see though, it's not great. There's a lot of blemishes. So again, this may be an extra seat slat that we need to take out. You can see there's kind of knots everywhere. I didn't actually pick out this wood. I let the guys at the lumber yard just toss it in the back of the truck, which was definitely a mistake. So I would take a little time to pick out better wood. The importance of picking a good piece of wood. So this obviously must have had a crack down the middle. You can see as I cut this to manageable sizes, to cut this in half, and it just popped, split right down the middle. This is the other piece. You can kind of see here, there's a crack right down the middle of this too. So these are the back legs. So I'm just gonna go get another 2x12. So lesson learned there, that's not ideal. Womp, womp, womp. So once we have all of our pieces cut out, here's an example of one of the back slats. Here's an example of one of the armrests. We need to sand it, right? So essentially, because we cut this on a bandsaw, there's going to be humps and bumps all throughout. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but there's starts and stops as we go along this curve here. As we go along this curve, and we have to kind of start and stop, especially right here. It kind of does peaks and valleys here, as I had to kind of make sure I stayed within that line. And then same thing with this. This is going to be in your armrest. You can see kind of stop, little chunk here where it stops here, and so we just want to sand that down. So I'm going to do a pretty rough sanding with the belt sander first. I do believe this is like 50 grit on here, so that'll take off material for sure. And then also you can see on here the black line. We got the UPS guy always honks at me because he likes my yard. This black line that I drew, we wanted to maybe just get that close enough to where we kind of take that off, and that's perfect for us because it's not as smooth right here. So we'll go ahead and sand all this down to make it smooth, but I'm gonna get it as smooth as I can on both sides here. So let's go ahead and knock out the sanding, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like with one of these pieces after I'm done here, how smooth it gets. And then I'll finish it up with like an 80 grit on a palm sander. That'll just give it a nice little finish, rough enough to accept any stain or paint that you want. You can even go down to like 120 if you want, make it super smooth, but it's outdoor furniture for me. I don't really care how smooth it is. It's going to be getting rained on and all that kind of stuff. So all right, let's get to sanding and we'll get on to the next steps. So as you can see, the sanding really smoothed out the edges here, and it also took away those saw marks. So that's just the rough sand paper there, and then I'll smooth it out with a finer grit here in just a second. So we're going to do that to all our pieces here, just smooth out these edges, and then we'll get on to routing the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to sand all these pieces, and then I'll come back to you. We're going to route the edges of each piece of this. I'll show you which side needs routed. This just makes it look a little cleaner, makes it a little smoother for when you're sitting on it. Obviously makes it feel better and just looks great. This is going to be a 3/8 inch round over bit here. And so this is the back slat. So this is the part where your back is gonna go here, and then it curves up to the top here. We just wanna do the front side of this, okay? So we don't wanna do the bottom here. This is a part here that's going to sit flush on the seat, so we don't wanna round over the bottom of this so it sits flush on there. So we'll do this one first, and then we'll get to each piece after that. We'll just take a sander and we'll sand off. This kind of leaves an edge here. At least my router does. This thing's super cheap. It doesn't get for this because the router base is square and I think not circle. When you go down into some of these peaks here, it definitely doesn't route it. So I've kind of just taken a sander before and just kind of sanded that and rounded over the edge there. It looks just fine. But let's go to the next piece here. So this is the bracket here. This is the bracket for the seat armrest. We do not want to route the back side of this. This is going to be pressed up against the chair, and this is the support for the top, but we do want to route all the curved edges on both sides. Okay, again, we'll touch this up with the sander as well. This is a seat slat, so this is exactly what you're going to be sitting on. So you want to pick kind of the pretty side. So we'll pick. Sometimes you'll have knots or something in here, and what you want to do is just flip that over. This side looks fine here. You just want to do both sides. It doesn't matter for the ends here because these are going to end up getting cut off at an angle. This is the rear seat slat. So as you can see, there's a knot here. So we'll just flip this over and we'll use this pretty side here for that. And for this one, you are going to route everything. You're going to route all corners of this seat slat. This is going to be one of the legs. So what you want to do is you just want to do the front. So we'll figure out which part looks the best here, and we'll just make this the front. So you just want to do the front two edges of your front legs. Now this was a 2x4, so it's kind of rounded over anyway. Okay. This piece here is going to fit onto the top of your back leg supports. So I'll show you that here. Right. Okay, so you can kind of see here how this works. This back leg support here has a little notch right here. And so what we'll want to do is we kind of just want to mark this spot here where we want that back to line up. Same with this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just put a little mark on there and you'll know where to line it up as far as that goes. And then you also want to mark the bottom of this, because this is the part we don't want to route, right? So we'll just mark the bottom of this, and then we'll go from there to route it. This is what I mean. So this is the bottom portion of this brace here, and what we want to do is we want to take this and just route it from here to here. We don't want to route anywhere in here because we want this to stay flat and look flush against the back leg supports. And then we'll flip it over and we'll route the sides and the back of this, but we won't route the front because this is where our back slats are going to screw into. All right, let's talk about routing the legs. So the back legs, you're going to route the entire bottom till you get to, this is actually the part that's going to sit on the ground here. So it's going to sit like this, rest like that. So you don't want to route the bottom of this. So we're going to route basically to this curve here. Then we're going to come up to this top part, and we're going to route all the way to this notch, this little elbow where that support sits, and then we will not route the rest of this. So we'll do that on both sides. So we'll do both legs while we're here. All right, this is the top brace for the seat slats. So this is gonna go up at the top here. So this is the top of the seat slats, and this is gonna be the top support for those slats. So what we wanna do, we don't wanna route the inside of this. where this sits on here, but we will route the outside here and the top and the bottom edges there, so it looks clean. All right, so this is the middle back support. This is what the armrests are going to rest on as well. So what we want to do is we want to mark this. We want to line this up like this. You can kind of see how they line up with these angles that the templates allowed us to cut here. So that should line up fairly close. And then we'll just take our pin, make a mark. And then you can just use the same armrest, and we'll just mark a line on the top for that side. And again, we don't want to do the inside of this because this is what our seat slots are going to be sitting up against, so we want that to be flush. And we don't want to route anything or here so that there's not a gap in between our armrests and this. So what we'll do is we'll route from these lines here to here on the top, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the entire bottom. Last thing we need to do is our armrests. So pick whichever side looks the best. You just need to do the top. No need to do the rest, the bottom, because you're not going to see it. And also the bottom needs to sit flush again with this. So we want that to be, but you're going to do the entire top. I'm going to go ahead and route each piece and we'll come back to you. All right, next steps here, we are going to apply some stain. We want to make sure that this lasts for a long time outside for many years to come. And I was going to paint this white, but I decided to find some white stain. So oil-based exterior white-based stain. Looks pretty good. I've already tested it on a piece, so I'll show you what we want to do here. We want to get all the pieces here, so we want to get this inside, the back, everything. We want to cover this as well as possible. I'm going to apply this pretty liberally, so we can get a bunch on here and just rub it in. You can just do a natural stain. I have one on my back porch. It's just natural pine color. It's just basically a clear stain. It looks okay. I'll probably end up staining that one white so I can have 3 of these all the same. But yeah, just rub this on here. It might take 2 coats. Again, we want this on the inside here, so we'll want that covered as well. Everything, so that everything is good to go, and it doesn't, when it rains or the sun hits it, it doesn't just, you know, end up crumbling and rotting away. So I'm going to stain all these pieces and kind of show you how I've laid them out. I'm going to let them dry, and then if they need a second coat, which this looks like it'll need a second coat. It's pretty thin on there. So here's all the pieces finished, stained white. I just stacked up some here, but this is what it should look like when it's all done. I did leave this one natural, so this is what it would look like natural. I just had a clear coat stain put on there. You need 13 of these, but you cut out an extra one just in case you need it. This one's kind of trash. It's got a crack in it here, so I figured I'd show you what it looks like just with the wood grain being pulled out there. But yeah, let's start putting these together. One more cut I forgot to do here is to cut this at a 30-degree angle here. This section here, this is where the back slats are going to sit up against, and you want them to lean back, so you pull those back and you'll screw those in to this middle back slat rest here. So we're just going to put our bandsaw at a 30-degree angle here, and then just follow this black line as close as we can. It doesn't have to be perfect, and this isn't really going to be seen. It's just something for the back slats to sit up against. So let's get started. So this is what you want it to look like. It's got a little 30-degree angle on there. Again, not perfect. We'll just sand some of this down. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then we'll just refinish this. First thing we're going to do to put these together is we're going to take one of the back leg supports, and we're going to take the front crossbar that holds these 2 back legs together. And you can see that this is cut at an angle. It's a 6-degree angle, and it's the same with the top or the front of this. And so those 2 will match up so that they create that perfect angle. You can do this a lot of different ways. You can line this up here. You can put brad nails in here if you want. I don't have a brad nailer. You can put a long clamp to hold all the way down in the front of this together. I don't have a long clamp either, so I'm not a woodworker, guys. I'm just literally just DIYing this thing on the fly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold it with my legs, because that's all I've got, and I'm gonna clamp this together as best as I can so that it will stay in place so I can drill this here just enough to get me to be able to keep it from sliding all around. And then what I want to do is I'm going to put two screws in the front of this. I'm going to pre-drill with a countersink bit here. There's one. Let's get our screw in place here. We want to use a 3-inch screw for this. Perfect. All right. Let me release this clamp now and make a slight adjustment here. And hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, so we've got this lined up perfectly here. There will be a little gap at the bottom as this isn't as long, but we do have this straight across the top. So let's go ahead and put our other screw in. We will pre-drill again. Might help if I go the right way. Genius! Make sure your drill's not on reverse when you try and drill it in. So we're gonna go here. As the wife comes home, ruins my video. So this is what we want it to look like right here. Now we're just gonna do the other leg and we'll be good. What we wanna do next is we're gonna put 2 screws in the top here and 1 here, and we're gonna pre-drill this just like we did the front brace. And we're gonna go 3-inch screw. Anytime there's 2 2x4s next to each other, you could do a 3-inch screw because you know it's not gonna pop through the other side. Now, let's do this. Now I wanna do this other side here. So what I'll kind of show you is you can see that this other side is not lined up, right? So we've got a little bit of a lip here. So what I wanna do is just force this to fit. Right, I'm just gonna squeeze that together, force that to fit. Now you could clamp that down if you want. I'm just gonna hold it, pre-drill, make sure that the other side, yep, bring this up just a little bit here. So it's lined up, perfect. Put another screw in, and we will just do that for the front part as well. Perfect. Now we'll put a screw here, we'll put a screw on the other side, and this part is done. All right, so now we need to put our front legs on. So one thing you're gonna want is probably to make this jig here, I guess is what you would call it. I just took some old 2x4s from a different project and screwed them together. So you want this so this can rest on this center brace will rest on this jig. But really what you want is you want it to be 14.5 inches to the top of this bar here, this support. So that the leg height is exactly where you need it. Okay, so I've already measured that, so it's 14.5 inches. Now here's our legs, right? So our legs are at a 5-degree angle towards the back of the chair. So what we want is we want to make sure that these are not going forward. We want them to go backwards or the whole project's going to be messed up. So we're going to set these here. It will be at a slight angle inward. So it's probably not going to stand up on its own. So you're probably just going to need a little clamp here, and then we'll make sure that this is square flush to the ground. So we'll clamp this in here real fast. Give it a little squeeze. You want to be able to move this a little bit so that clamp doesn't need to be super tight. But then what we want to do is get yourself a square as I drop my other square. And you just want to make sure that this is lined up flush with your table. Now I'm on a plastic table, so I'm not sure how flat this actually is. So I'm not sure how this is, but I would say that it's not too far off. I've already built one of these chairs, so this table worked just fine for that. Square that up again. So that looks perfect. You could even clamp this square to this so that you know that it doesn't move at all. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna put 1 screw right here in the middle just to hold this in place. And then we're gonna put carriage bolts here through here to make it really, really sound. So we're gonna put one screw right here. I'm gonna pre-drill. Let's get our screw. All right, so we'll do that, and then we'll do the other side, and then I'll show you the carriage bolts. So now we can remove our clamps. We got the other side hooked up here, and we are going to do our hot dip galvanized 3-inch bolts. So let's get our 3/8 inch bit here, and we're gonna do 2 of these. This is really gonna make this a solid chair. If you ever have anybody bigger sitting in it or kids jumping around playing on it, this thing's gonna last forever. So we're gonna do one here and one here. We're gonna pre-drill this and then get this all hooked up here. I've hit a screw, perfect. So for future reference, I would try to maybe line that up so you don't hit a screw. Put that in there. And then I'll just get a piece of wood, hammer that in as far as it'll go. Then we'll put up It was at this moment he knew he messed up. I do declare that I have purchased the wrong size carriage bolts for this project. Being the high-level genius that I am, I added 1.5 inch board to 1.5 inch board and came up with a genius idea of buying a 3-inch carriage bolt instead of a 3.5 inch carriage bolt. I am a high-functioning genius, folks. Follow me for more tips and tricks. Quick trip to the hardware store and we have the right size carriage bolts. So we are going to put that back in there. And I'm gonna put that in there, put the washer on the other side here. Oh, look. It fits. This on here, and then just crank that down. And we'll tighten that to where that pulls in, and this washer will actually pull in into the wood itself as well. Now, one thing that I did here that another high-level genius move that I made, follow me, like I said, for more tips and tricks, I put this hole right in line with this screw. So I'm gonna need to back this screw out so that I can put this carriage bolt in there. Hopefully that's, oh, well, I guess I should drill through it first. Just full of great ideas today. Let's back this out even more. And we'll go through. I know that that's not still hitting that. Whew. Got it. All right, let's get this in there. Use our awesome wood hammer that we have here, and we'll put this on. Washer, nut, and then we'll just kind of make sure that this will go around that. This will actually find a perfect path for itself. At least that's what I'm telling myself. You can do it. No. There we go. It's not pretty, but we did it. So right here, my microphone turned off. So what I'm just showing here is a template that we made just to hold the seat slats on there. Just take 2 screws, screw it in the bottom of this, and it essentially makes it super easy to set those seat slats on so you don't have to hold them up in perfect place. All right, let's put these seat slats on. So what we want to do is we want to start on the outer edge here. We want to make sure that we have this lined up perfectly with the edge. Just like that. And then again, we want to countersink this. Now what we want to do is have this come perfect. Just scratch the finish on that. I have to touch that up. We want to come in at an angle. English is hard. So we want to come in at an angle here. So we're gonna, all right, we got this lined up here and we'll put our countersink in. All right, so we've got that countersunk and then we'll put our screw in. So line that back up. This is much easier if you have somebody to help you hold this in place. But once you get the edges on, in the middle is the one we'll do next, it gets a little easier. Awesome. So that should look like that. And we'll get our middle one lined up here. So this is my middle board. I have made a notch here. You can't see it, but I made a notch here. I measured what is the middle piece or what is the middle of this board, and then I've notched out the middle of this. And so I'm just going to line these up behind here so I know exactly where the middle of this board is. And again, this is much easier if you have somebody helping you, but we're going to countersink this. Grab our screw, place that in there. Okay, perfect. And then we'll do the other outer one, and then I'll show you how to line these up. All right, now that we have the out, and you'll see why we went in that order here right now. So you can just bring the rest of your boards over and just make sure they fit in between here. And then we'll just space these out evenly as we go. If you have somebody to help you, you can have all these held up at the same time, and you can do them all at the same time. I do not, so I'm just going to work from the inside out, but I've laid out which boards I want where, and then we'll make sure that these next 4 here, or 5, whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, can fit in between here as well. And then I'll just countersink each one of these and do the same process for each. There will be some space, very minimal space at the bottom, but they will space out, as you can see right here at the top. They'll kind of fan out and make an awesome looking design there. All right, let me put all these in and I'll come back to you. That is all together. You can see, starting to look like a chair, right? You can really see the curve of the back slats there for the lower lumbar section, there. So, all right, let's move on to the next piece. All right, our next step is to put the armrest on here. So what we want to do, I've made a little jig here. So what you really want is you want this to be 2 inches. So this is 2 inch by 1 inch. You want 2 inches of this armrest to be in front of this leg, and you want 1 inch to be on the inside of this leg. So you can really kind of swing this up and down if you need to, but essentially it should look something like this. I may need to move that back slat because this needs to come straight. So let's do that. Let's push this back slat in. So essentially we want it to look something similar to this. We want the middle of this to be hitting this 2 inch mark here. And we want this to be slightly a little farther over. It's kind of hard because, there we go. So we've got this, we've got 1 inch here on this side, and we've got this middle of this hitting 2 inches. So that's pretty much exactly what we want. So we'll take this off here and we will pre-drill, and we're just going to put 1 screw in. Okay, this is so hard to do by yourself. All right, so we've got 1 screw in there, and we want this to be able to move and wiggle. So that's why we're not putting 2 screws in there yet to lock that in place. Because when we put that back brace on, this needs to be able to move freely. So we'll do the other armrest and we'll come back to you. Next thing we want to do is put the back middle support brace on. And what we want to do, these are all cut at this angle, right? So we want to make sure that this is squared up here. If you made your cuts right and you traced it out right, it should line right up on these nice angles here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to measure out from the side here. We want to make sure each side is exactly equidistant as far as the handles go. That way everything fits in place. So get yourself a nice little plumb bob. I have a hunting snare with a bolt on the end of it, total redneck move, but we'll go from there. Now I have already measured this to save you guys the 5 long minutes of trying to get this thing plumb, but it is about 6 inches on each side, but we'll double check that right now. Not exactly the best. You should probably use like a string, and maybe a bolt would probably be better, but it is what it is. It's the same on both sides. Okay, cool. So now that we have it the same on both sides, you can either put in more carriage bolts here. You can do 2 carriage bolts here to really lock this in and make it solid. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do 2.5 inch screws. I'm gonna do 4 deck screws. on the back here. So we want to do 2.5. We don't want to do 3.5 per my math on the first time I screwed that up. So we'll get our drill. We want to pre-drill. All right, we want to pre-drill this. So we're going to pre-drill one hole here. I guess countersink is what the kids are saying these days. Let's go straight down here, lock that in, and we'll just do this a couple more times here. We'll go. You guys ever watch these videos with woodworkers and they get the dust on there and you actually like start blowing on your computer screen, or you try and wipe off your phone screen? Just me? Cool. All right, let's take this clamp off here. We'll get 2 more screws in there. Cool. We'll do the other side and this part will be done. All right, let's go ahead and firm up the rest of this arm rest here, and we'll put another 3-inch screw right through here. Well, we'll get it a little closer. Mark here. So we'll just add another screw here to make this a little more sturdy. Next piece we're going to add is the bracket. You can cut this at a 5-degree angle so it slopes back, or it'll actually be flush to this. But really what we want, or what I don't really care if it's flush or not, I'll just have it tilted back, and that way, but you don't want to, this is why we had this measured out here, so that this doesn't hang over the edge, right? So there's just enough space in here for this. You are going to screw a 3-inch screw through this side of the leg to hold that in place. I'm going to clamp this so that it stays in place while I screw this in, and then we'll have another screw come down through the top, so that it's perfect for that. This just adds a little extra support for that outside of that armrest. So we'll pre-drill here. Of course, I hit another screw. Pretty good at that. Perfect. And then we'll just drill right through here. You can kind of eyeball this and see where the bracket is. We'll put a 2.5-inch screw on there so it doesn't pop out the bottom of this. Perfect. What we need to do next, we need to attach these back slats first before we do the seat slats. We need to attach the back slats to this back brace here. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with the middle one, put this in first, and then we'll space all these out kind of evenly and attach all these back here. So let's do that. So we're going to countersink again, just kind of eyeball this, pick the middle. Perfect. We will make sure that these are spaced out evenly between them. Now, there's not a lot of space in between a lot of these, so you got to really move it. So let me do that, and I'll attach all these together and get them spaced out, since I can't hold a camera and do this at the same time. So let me put all these screws in, and we'll try and get as straight of a line as possible. It might not be perfect, but we'll try, and just aesthetically it'll look better with a straight line across here. So let's try that. All right, should look something like that. Definitely didn't get the line straight, but I am putting this white stain on top of these yellow screws. There's white screws that you can get. They just didn't have enough for 2 chairs when I was at the store. So I'm just kind of dabbing paint, or not paint, but I'm filling these in with that white stain, so you can't hardly see the yellow that's in the screws. All right, next thing we need to do is put this back slat behind there and wrap up the back of the chair here. So we want to start with the middle slat here. I've got this obviously clamped up here, so we're pulling tension on this because these obviously are all kind of warped from just drying in my garage or drying out. So we're going to move these all into position here. So what I'm going to do is pre-drill this middle one first, and then I'm going to go from there. I'm going to go probably then to the outside to make sure that the edge here is on the right in the middle of where I need it to be. But let's do this middle one first. Pre-drill everything, always. Again, 3-inch screws. All right, we're going to do this side one so you can kind of see how it's sticking out over the edge. We need to force this over. There we go. I want to just move this over to the side. I'm going to go at an angle. Actually, I'm just going to come straight in like this. Put a little spacer in between here just so I can keep this somewhat where I need it. Get my screw. We'll go use this spacer as leverage here. So we got that end piece on there. We're just gonna go all the way around, and really what I need to do is just kind of hold these down like this on there, screw them in place, and they'll be locked into place, and eventually they'll just warp that way. So there's the finished product of the top rear back slat support. So as you can see, it goes straight to the edge there. It's pretty tight to clamp each one if you wanted to not push that board out, because it's going to be too hard to space it and get it all in there where it fits real nice. Real nice. Last thing, we're going to put these seat slats in. Now this piece is the back seat slat. It's just going to fit right in here. It already has the angles that we need to follow along this curved angle here. So just set that up, and as you can see, these are all long. So we've cut all these pieces and they're hanging over the edge, right? So what we're gonna do is take these pieces here, and since that piece doesn't fit in there, there's another piece that goes right here, and then the front piece as well that's gonna hang over this lip a little bit. We're gonna draw a line under here. Take a pen or a pencil and you just trace underneath here, right along the edge, hold them all still, and just make sure you get that line on there real nice. And then we're just gonna cut it. I'm gonna use the chop saw, cut it on the chop saw, miter saw, whatever you wanna call it. And then what we'll do here in a second is we'll just lay these pieces flat on the ground upside down in the order that they go, and we'll just use a ruler and trace that line so it holds that same true line there. So I'll show you that here in a second. So we see this line here. We'll just take this line, take a straight edge. We'll just trace it all the way up. Should be pretty close. And then we'll just do that for the other side. Now we'll just cut it. All right, all seat slats are finished. They're cut, and went ahead and did a, just routed over the edge of that cut, and then refinished that with the stain on there as well. So all these have been prepared and ready to get back on this chair here and finish this thing up. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do what we've been doing this whole time, and we're just gonna pre-drill this, and we are gonna put 3-inch screws down in here, and this will be done. So we'll just drill right down in the middle here. All right, as you can see, this will just fit right up against here. Like I said, there should be space between these, but again, if I don't have a table saw, so these are a little thicker than the average boards. Some are thicker than others, so that's a problem for me personally, for this project, if you will. So let me just screw all these back in, and then we'll show you the finished product here. There it is in all her glory. I just put a little stain over the yellow screws there, but looks good. I mean, it's a pretty nice looking chair. It's very, very sturdy, very heavy. One of the things I didn't add here was he puts wheels. Kings Fine Woodworking. There is on the template a design to drill a hole there in the back of these legs to put like roller skate wheels or something like that, rollerblade wheels, so that you can tilt this up and move it around, because this thing is very heavy, very bulky, very heavy. But I'm just gonna get the wife to help me pick this up and walk it to the back where we're gonna keep it. So very nice chair. Took forever to build 2 of these. I want to say it took me, with having a full-time job and kids and all that, it took me, you know, almost a week. It might take you a little less, but it took me forever. So here's the finished product. This did take me about a week to make 2 chairs, which I find to be a little crazy. It's just the fact that there's so many curves in this thing, and I don't exactly have a bunch of woodworking material, but they turned out great. I think the white stain turned out great. We'll see if it marks up pretty easily, but I like it. I like the finished product. I made both of these chairs. The wood for each chair cost me about 51 bucks a piece, so a little over $100 total for the wood for both chairs, and then with the bolts and the screws and all that kind of stuff. I broke a bandsaw, so I had to buy a new blade, couple bucks there, but all in all, made these chairs each for under $100, so can't complain with that. Solidly built. Had to have the wife help me carry these out here because they're just heavy. They're very solid chairs. So hope you like this video. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe. That really helps out, and tune in for the next one. Thanks.